self-directed learning, but I'm also part of the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency's Youth Preparedness Council. We'll get more into that at the end of it, but yeah, we're going through and we're giving these presentations to pretty much everywhere in Saskatchewan. So, and it is about severe weather, which is quite interesting. So, I'm just going to go into an overview. So, we're going to talk about a lot of tornado stuff. That's like the main chunk of what we're talking about today. So, we have just the basics on tornadoes. We just go more into what they can do, how they do it, and how to stay safe. And then we go into more of the storms that produce them. So, talking about hail, floods, winds, and then just some extra other safety information. So, I'm just going to go into a little overview first. So, what is severe weather? So, severe weather is any sort of weather event that can cause damage or destruction. So, you can have a heat wave can come in and it can make people sick. That can kill a lot of people. That is severe weather. You can have a tornado come in, obviously. It can destroy buildings. That's severe weather. Any sort of damaging to property or health. So, it can be anywhere in the world, and it is getting more and more intense with climate change. Now, when we talk about that severe weather, you want to be watching for two things. So Environment Canada can put out alerts as the day goes on. So you can have a watch, so a watch means that they are detecting that there could be a chance of severe thunderstorms later into the day, severe thunderstorms or tornadoes. So if you hear a watch, it does not mean to take shelter, but it does mean to be prepared in case a warning does occur. So try and stay around areas that you can quickly go and take shelter. Once you get a warning, like a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning or a flash flood warning, that means it is happening right now. You need to get underground, you need to get shelter, do whatever that warning says. So here we go. We're going to go into tornadoes now. So, what is a tornado? Now, we live in Saskatchewan, so I'm sure a lot of you guys already know, but for those who don't know, so a tornado is a rapidly rotating column of air that forms from a thunderstorm. A tornado does have to form from a thunderstorm. There's many ways that a tornado can form from a thunderstorm, but if it isn't from a thunderstorm, it's not a tornado. So your dust devils, those are not tornadic. Most tornadoes form from something called a supercell. So a supercell thunderstorm is a thunderstorm that has a rotating updraft. They can be really small or really big. You can have a tornado that's a few feet wide, and then you can have a tornado that is miles upon miles wide. The widest tornado ever recorded was over 5 kilometers wide. That is larger than the entire metropolitan area of North Battleford. So Canada actually has the second highest yearly tornado count in the entire world. So the US gets about 1,100 per year, and then Canada gets 60. Although recently we've been trending to go over 100 per year. And experts, they actually estimate that over 230 tornadoes touch down in Canada per year. So we're going to go into this is their main type of tornadoes. So supercell tornado is a tornado that forms from a supercell. Over 90% of tornadoes actually form from these storms. These are your classic summer storms. They have a lowered base, so your main hail is going to be over here. This is your main chunk of your storm. This is your updraft. So that's where your tornado is going to end up forming. So yeah, like I said, 90% of tornadoes form from supercells. This is where you're going to see your stronger, more violent tornadoes. And all a supercell storm is it's a storm that forms in a really rich environment, which allows for the updraft. That's where all the air moving up, it allows it to spin, which can pull air down and form a tornado. So here is a radar image of a tornado. You can see right up here, this is where your main hail threat is going to be. Up in the front right here, you're going to have your straight line winds. So that's going to be winds that just blow trees over. And then you're going to have your hail in this pink and red area. That's going to be really heavy rain, softball-sized hail. And specifically in this storm, it can be smaller depending on the thunderstorm. And then right here, that's where your updraft is. So this is actually a calm area of the storm. However, the updraft is physically pulling the storm into it and wrapping it around the tornado. So this was taken last year. So this was June 23rd, 2024. That's Radisson right there. There's a weather radar there. That was a very violent tornado. It was rotating for, I think, 236 kilometers, which is extremely long. So this is another, and this is on the same day, it was just west of Spiritwood. So you can see it's a lot smaller. This one produced a lot smaller hail, but you can still see you have your area in the front. So this is where your straight line winds are going to be, and it's pulling in all that air, and you can still see it rotating. Now, not every supercell actually has a definitive rotating in the thing, so you have to watch for that. A lot of like your weather network radars, they can't pick these things up. So now there's another type of tornado called a QLCS, which is a quasi-linear convective system. Really big word for a very simple thing. All it is a long line of thunderstorms. So instead of having one main updraft, your entire area back here is rising air. Your entire area in the front is falling air. So that's just a strong storm sweeping across land. So the problem with QLCS tornadoes, although they are weaker, they are way harder to detect on radar. So they form very fast and they dissipate very fast. They can be strong. Statistically, they're less strong because they last less, but they can still be very strong. These storms can produce a lot of tornadoes sometimes. So here's actually, here's a video. This was in Alabama, but that's just your squall line. So it's coming in. You have really strong winds going in the front of it. They're so strong that it's forming new storms in front of it. So that's pushing it out, and that's forming new storms. There's one last type of tornado. It's called the cold core tornado. So we still don't fully understand these. They're kind of a new thing. But cold core tornadoes form underneath rapidly growing thunderstorms. So you can have a really small little pulse storm. The air rises, cause it to spin, you can have a tornado touchdown. These tornadoes are not only rare, but they're also really hard. They're hard to detect, and they're normally very weak. Canada's first tornado of the year was actually a cold core tornado near Brooks, Alberta. That is this tornado. So that was it was pretty weak, but there's not much to say about those ones. But now, what do a tornado look like? So tornadoes can have many different shapes and sizes, many different flavors, as I like to call it. So they can be, some of them can be completely invisible. You can have a tornado that's absolutely enormous. You can see it, you can look at it, and you're like, okay, that's definitely a tornado. And you can have another one that's rotating through a field, and it doesn't do damage until it goes right into a town. So you can't see it until it kills something sometimes. So it always depends on the conditions. So if you have a really moist, very wet field, that tornado is not going to be picking anything up until it's a house or a tree. But if it's a really dry conditions, you have very dry dirt, you get that sucked up into the tornado. That's what's going on here. Along with a lot of the debris from the houses, that's what you see there. That's what makes the tornadoes visible. So these are examples of non-condensed tornadoes. So you still have those dry conditions on the ground, but you don't actually have a funnel coming from the ground. The funnel only occurs when there's really, really high moisture, really high instability in this area of the storm. That does not mean there's no tornado. These are still very much tornadoes. It's just that the condensed funnel isn't visible yet. So this is another type of tornado. It's just, this is a wedge. So very large. These ones are primarily the worst kind of tornado just because they're physically larger. Tornado size doesn't mean it's strong, it just means that its damage path is wider. So as you can also see, there's rain that's falling around the storm. So sometimes tornadoes can wrap rain around themselves, which makes them completely invisible to see. This one, it isn't fully rain wrapped yet, but chances are in about 2 minutes, that tornado is going to be completely invisible. But here's some other pictures. So this is a multi-vortex tornado. Sometimes tornadoes can get so strong, they basically spin themselves apart. So they have more than one tornado that rotates around each other. And then this one here is just, this was the Edmonton F4 tornado back in the 80s. So the shape or size of the tornado has absolutely nothing to do with its intensity. So these tornadoes, they're very different. One of them, this was a mile wide. This one was smaller than this room. And yet they were both greater than F5 tornado, which is the highest rating of tornadoes you can actually get. So this is the 1999 Bridge Creek Moore tornado, one of the most famous tornadoes ever recorded. And this was the 2007 Ely, Manitoba tornado. So that was Canada's only F5 tornado. It was smaller than this room, but it picked an entire house up. So one thing important to remember about tornadoes is you never want to assume where they're moving. So tornadoes, they're unpredictable. You can't predict where they're going to move. Lots of tornadoes don't move in a straight line. Like a tornado has to move with its thunderstorm. So if you have a thunderstorm that's moving northeast, that tornado eventually is going to have to move northeast with that storm. But the ground rotation can move around depending on where that tornado is moving. So here is actually, this is the El Reno tornado. This was the widest tornado recorded in history. It was 2.6 miles wide along this point. That's 5 kilometers. And the storm was moving this way. It was tracking directly this way. At no point was that tornado moving directly east. This was a very infamous tornado. It actually killed a lot of people who were chasing it just because of how unpredictable it was. But this was an EF3, but it had wind speeds of over 330 miles per hour, which is the strongest wind speeds ever recorded on planet Earth. It moved, and it ended up turning north. It did some loops, and then it came back around. It was very unpredictable. That's what made it so dangerous. This is the Collingridge, Nebraska EF4. Again, you had your thunderstorm. It was moving directly east, and this tornado never went east when it was under its storm. Never assume which way a tornado was going. This was actually a tornado outbreak. So this was multiple tornadoes that occurred within one night. So each one of these tornadoes actually occurred within 3 hours of each other. So this was in Grand Island, Nebraska. And a lot of these tornadoes actually spun backwards. This one here, it was spinning backwards. Normally they'll spin counterclockwise in the northern hemisphere. This one was spinning backwards, moving counterclockwise. Very rare, but it doesn't mean anything with the tornado. It's still just as dangerous. So this was the Ely, Manitoba tornado. That was the one that we saw earlier. It was also very unpredictable. The storm, it was moving this way. So it was going southeast, and the tornado did a whole bunch of loop-de-loops. Right here, where you see right there, this singular loop is what gave it its F5 rating. It picked up 3 houses and threw them a few hundred feet. It was a very strong tornado, even though it was very short-lived and small. So now we've talked about what tornadoes are. Now I'm going to tell you guys what you should do in a tornado. So if you receive a tornado warning or you see a tornado somewhere, you know there's a tornado coming, you need to get underground, away from windows, and in a sturdy shelter. So the best place that you can possibly be is underground, as far below the ground as you possibly can be, and away from all exterior walls and windows. The reason for that is when you have a tornado, it's strong. It's going to be destroying whatever is in its path, depending on how strong it is. So it can be throwing debris through your windows, through your exterior walls. Being underground and on the interior room of your house is the safest spot to be. That's going to give you a lot of protection from the outside. Now, if you don't have a basement, you just want to try and get into that interior room. So you want to just put as many walls between you and the outside as possible. So a bathroom, interior closets, sometimes even bedrooms, depending on where they are in your house. Now here's the reason why you got to stay from exterior walls. Now I don't know about you guys, but I would really not want to be standing in front of that as it went through my wall. It would not be very comfortable. So this is a bedroom right here on this side. So there's an exterior wall out here. These are interior walls, and that's a fridge. It went through so powerfully that it came out through the fridge without even moving it. This was I don't know where the origination of this photo is. I just know it was a tornado in, I think, Texas. It was very strong. So trailer homes do not provide a lot of safety just because they aren't anchored to the ground properly, and they don't have many interior walls that you can go to. And since they're not anchored to the ground, they can roll really easily. So even a weak tornado, so even as low as an EF1, which is the second weakest kind of tornado, can roll and completely destroy trailer homes. So trailer homes are not safe. Once they start rolling, they kind of just become like a washing machine and you just get thrown around. So try and stay away from mobile homes. They are better than just being standing in an open field, but they want to try and be avoided if you can. So here's something that's kind of surprising. You want to stay away from long span buildings. So a long span building is a type of building that has all of its load-bearing walls, so that's what basically would hold up the room, on the outside. So the building we're in right now, so this room, this is a long span building. You can see this wall comes all the way around. There's nothing on the inside. So tornadoes can actually do a lot of damage to these buildings, because if this wall were to have debris blown through it or something, it would collapse, which would cause the rest of the building to collapse. A lot of weaker tornadoes like EF3 and EF4, and especially EF5, have actually completely destroyed large, like really big warehouses and supermarkets just because they're so heavy that they can't withstand the pressure of losing their outside walls. So this was an EF4 tornado that did this damage. It completely collapsed this Walmart, as you can see. Now, they are a lot better than, say, a mobile home. If you you don't have any other places to go, of course, by all means, stay in your shelter. But what you want to do is, if you're in this Walmart, there's going to be a lot of, like, there'll be a break room, there'll be areas that you can go inside of that building, so if it does collapse, you're still going to be safe. So if you are driving, number one thing, do not chase a tornado. It is extremely dangerous to chase tornadoes. Storm chasing is, well, a job, but it's also, you have a lot of training you have to take in order to do it, and it can get you really hurt if you're not careful. Like we said, tornadoes are unpredictable. Never just take that risk. It's not worth it. So if you are driving, try and find a building you can take shelter in. So along major routes, you'll have towns, you'll have gas stations. Try and find that area and just shelter in place. Get down, try to find below ground, just interior rooms, then you're safe, you're in your building. But if you don't have a building you can get there, and you're far enough away from the tornado, just drive away from it. Be very careful about which direction the tornado is going. You don't want to drive into it. But if you can see that tornado, you're watching it, and it's moving this way, and you know that the storm is also going this way, then you drive the opposite direction of that. Doesn't matter where you're going, your life is way more important than your destination. So if you do not have time, it is raining really heavy, you notice that the wind is picking up, it's getting a lot stronger, get out of your car and take cover in the ditch. Now, the reason we say that is a lot of tornadoes, they are going to hurt you. They are going to completely destroy cars. I have some pictures of what tornadoes have done to cars. They do not provide any safety. Their walls are only a few inches thick, and they're basically all windows. They do not provide any protection to you whatsoever. So get down in the ditch and cover your head. In a tornado, there's never a perfectly safe place. You just want to go to the place that is going to be the safest. It is not safe to be in a ditch during a tornado, but it is safer than being inside of your car. So here are some pictures of what they've done to cars. So this was the Twistex team. This was in the El Reno tornado. That was the one that we saw earlier. These are some storm chasers. They were hit by just the outside of the tornado. So this wasn't even in the core. This was just on the bare edge of it, and they were completely destroyed, completely mangled. Now, this picture right here, that isn't a car. I mean, that is a car, but it's also an ATV. So that's two vehicles scrunched together. You can't even recognize it. You do not want to be inside this if you get hit by a tornado. You'll get hurt, really hurt. So this was a combine. This was in Didsbury, Alberta in 2023. So we're going to do a little guessing game here. So I want you guys to take a guess on how far this combine traveled. So if you think that it rolled, or it was picked up, or it was thrown, it was moved from its original starting point 10 meters, I want you to put your hand up. No one. Okay. Okay, how about 100 meters? If you think it's 100 meters, I want you to put your hand up. Okay. At least we have a few more here. Okay, this is good. Okay, how about 30 meters? Who here thinks 30 meters? Okay, we got one, we got two. Okay, 30 meters, that's a decent distance. That's about this far. How about 60 meters? Okay, we got a lot of people for 60 meters. 60 meters is very far. The answer, it was thrown about 100 meters. 100 meters. So this combine, it was not just moved 100 meters. It was picked up and thrown 50 meters and then rolled another 50. So that is extremely, like, I would not want to be inside of that combine. Like, it's like a washing machine. And want to know the craziest thing about it? This was not even the strongest kind of tornado. So this was an EF4. That's the second strongest. And it still did this. If you have a tornado that has exceeded, we've had tornadoes that have exceeded an EF5 rating by over 100 miles per hour. Those tornadoes are extremely powerful. Back in the olden days, so back in the 70s, there were two tornadoes that were originally given an F6 rating, but they were downgraded to an F5 because the damage of an F5 tornado is already so extreme that you cannot confirm it was stronger than that, because that's all that our infrastructure can withstand. So, now this was in Greenfield, Iowa. This was pretty interesting. This was also last year. So, a tornado actually struck in the springtime when they were seeding corn. So down in Iowa, they grow lots of corn. So what it did is it went through a town, and it absolutely it obliterated it. It was one of the strongest tornadoes in recorded history. Now, it still was only EF4, but it picked up seeds of the corn, and it embedded it so far into the ground that 3 weeks after, the Department of Transportation is cleaning up, and they noticed that corn, it was growing throughout the entire town. There was a path that the tornado went through, so there was a massive, just carved edge through the town after the tornado. 3 weeks later, it was pure green, just corn that was growing. It wouldn't be growing now, but it grew all summer throughout there. They kept mowing it, and it would just grow back again. So it was a corn apocalypse. So this was also that same tornado. So so you can see in the background that those are wind turbines here. And this is what's left of one of the wind turbines. So it absolutely obliterated it. So now this is another thing we gotta talk about. So tornadoes even weak tornadoes, an EF1 tornado actually blew a whole bunch of power lines over near Foam Lake, Saskatchewan in 2022. If you see down power lines, always assume that they are live. So tornadoes can have a lot more hazards after they pass. You can have fires. You can have electrical wires that are sparking. Always assume that these are live because they likely are going to be live. If you see down power lines, stay back as far as you possibly can and either call Sask Power or even 911 if you have a reason to. If it's on fire, if there's people that are hurt from it, call 911. So now we're going to have to go into some more stuff. So tornadoes are the main threat in these thunderstorms, but there are a lot more threats that can be inside of these thunderstorms, and that's hail. Hail is another one of the threats. So this is our YouTube channel. So we're the Saskatchewan Storm Chasers. And so we do chasing and stuff. That's part of what we're doing with all the presentations. And this is just south of Rock Haven. So it's very close to here. It's about 7 miles just south of here. That's where this video was recorded. We had 9 times in, so it wasn't very large. You can see that hail is not very big. It was pretty small. But about 5 minutes later, I was driving through that storm, and they were larger than golf balls. It grew very quickly. Now, in a storm, you can have different areas of the storm have different sizes of hail. So if you have pea-sized hail at the start, it still can get bigger and bigger. That's why it's important to be in shelter. Now, one other thing I want to point out really quickly, there is a tornado developing right there. You can't see it. This was a fully rain-wrapped tornado. It was completely invisible. And I almost drove right into it. That's why it's important to not chase storms, and it's important to take warnings seriously. So again, we're just going to go back to our supercell picture. So again, this is near Radisson. So you have your tornado here, but in all these areas that have higher, it's called reflectivity. So you have your radar here, it sends a beam, and then it'll reflect a certain amount of beams right back to it, depending on what it bounces off of. So what you're seeing here is there's more stuff that's in here that the radar is reflecting back off. So this is where you're likely going to have your largest hail, and it gets larger and larger the closer that you get to that updraft. So you could have pea-sized hail up here, and you might have nickel-sized hail, and then ping-pong ball, and then golf ball, maybe even up to softball or grapefruit-sized hail. So hail can be enormous. So how dangerous is hail? So hail is exceedingly dangerous. Now, hail is not very common. It's more common than tornadoes, but it is quite rare because a hailstorm is in a very localized area, just the same as a tornado is. But I know there's a lot of farmers here. It does a lot of damage to crops. Now, if you're standing out in that, it can do a lot of damage to your body as well. So it can destroy windshields in cars. It can destroy your hood. Like that is some very substantial damage right there. It can just completely obliterate your roof. It can destroy houses. It can go through windows. Not only that, if it's added with strong winds or even a tornado, those now ping-pong ball-sized hailstones are going to be flying at you at over 100 kilometers an hour. That's going to hurt. And that's going to hurt a lot. So hail can actually fall from thunderstorms by over 150 kilometers an hour. That is very fast. It's well over highway speed. If you get a softball-sized hailstone traveling at 150 kilometers an hour and it hits you, it's gonna hurt. You will be seriously injured. Now, something crazy that can happen with hailstones. This is not snow. This is hail. Sometimes you can get so much hail that it can be just stuck to the ground all over the highway. This was in Kansas, and they had to, the Department of Transportation had to get the snow plows out just to clear all the snow off, all the hail off the road. So that's where another hazard with hail is. When you have so much hail like this, has anyone here ever driven through a snowstorm before? Just put your hand up if you've driven through a snowstorm. Hail, okay, yeah, it's Canada, so I kind of assumed so. But hail can be very similar to a whiteout. It makes visibility very bad. Driving conditions can deteriorate very quickly in hailstorms because, well, not only are you getting those golf ball-sized hailstones going through your car, but it's also going to be reducing your visibility, and it makes the roads very slippery. So if you get in a hailstorm, do not drive. We're going to go more into that after. So what should you do if you're outside in a hailstorm? It's quite simple. Just go inside. So you can get a severe thunderstorm warning, or even sometimes you'll just get a hailstorm that pops up out of the blue. That's not unheard of. Just go inside and try and stay away from windows. So hail, remember, just because it's small hail right now doesn't mean that later it's going to get bigger. So you can have golf ball sized hail in about 5 minutes after. So just try and stay away from windows. Hail can very easily go through windows, and then you have glass flying everywhere. Just stay away. It'll be much more safe. So another thing to remember, thunderstorms are very complex. So you can have your hail that's being developed, but you can also have a tornado that's developing very close, or straight line winds, or flooding. So just be aware, try and watch the storm from a safe distance, and just know how to proceed with things. So know what you do if you're driving. So if you're driving, try and find a shelter before the storm hits. So if you see just black clouds on the horizon, just don't drive into it. Try and find a detour, go around it, try and stay out of the situation before you get into it. Now, if you don't have time or it pops up really quickly, okay, pull over off the side of the road and just shelter in place in your vehicle. Now, leave your engine running. If you have your engine running, and let's say a tornado does pop up out of the blue, it's better to have your engine running because your airbags can deploy. If your engine is off, your airbags will not deploy. So just pull over off the side of the road and leave your engine running and just shelter. So now remember, severe thunderstorms can produce all those other hazards, just be careful. Now, we're going to go into another aspect of severe thunderstorms, and that's floods. So floods can occur from any thunderstorm. So not only thunderstorms can produce floods, but also just heavy rainstorms or spring runoff. So here is another video that we've taken. This was just north. You guys, does everyone here know where Peyton is? Quite a few. But Peyton, you guys don't know, Peyton is just north a little bit. So it's north about 15-ish miles, maybe a little less. And so this is what we recorded up there. There was a pretty heavy rainstorm.
Holy moly! Wind blowing south.
So as you can see right up here, this is little trees and stuff. Again, your visibility is going down. So you have a very little visibility in these rainstorms, but right up here, we started driving right after this and the road was flooded. There was water running over the road. This storm it started maybe, and then it lasted for about 7 minutes and it was gone. In 7 minutes, the ditches were overflowing, water was running over the roads, dirt roads were being washed out. It was a very strong storm. Now, floods can be caused by many things, like I said earlier, spring runoff, thunderstorms, multitude of things. Thunderstorms, flash floods can be very dangerous because they pop up very quick, 7 minutes. 7 minutes when there being absolutely no water to all of a sudden being underwater. Very dangerous, and it's, again, very unpredictable. So flood risks are actually often overlooked during severe weather situations. It is Saskatchewan. It is perfectly flat in a lot of places. Other areas do have those low-lying areas which are more likely going to flood, but flood risks are very much overlooked in Saskatchewan. But almost all thunderstorms have the risk to produce flash flooding. Any thunderstorm will have locally have locally heavy rainfall, which can lead to flooding. So why are floods dangerous? Like, it's just water, isn't it? Well, getting caught in flowing water can actually sweep you off your feet. Now, water 6 inches, so that's about that deep. That's pretty shallow. If it's flowing, it can knock anyone off their feet. Once you get above 6 inches, you can wash away cars and small vans, and then above 1 foot, and it can wash away everything. You can wash away pickup trucks, wash away small buildings. Very serious, extremely dangerous. If you're caught in a flow of water, it's very hard to swim. Not only are you now moving, you can crash into debris, or you can hit something like that. So unexpected rising waters can stop travel. So you can be driving, and there's just water in your way, and you can't get through. So homes, buildings, and other vehicles can be washed away in water. Water is powerful. The flow of water can be very destructive, and it can erode areas, and it can destroy roads. It can do lots of damage. So one thing with floods as well, electrocution can occur if you are in the water and, let's say, a bolt of lightning strikes. You can actually be electrocuted if you're in that water. If you have power lines that are sparking, so you can have a power line that's arcing onto the ground or one that fell, that water is now going to be live. So how to stay safe? Flash floods, they're overlooked, but they're very easy to stay safe in. Never drive through floodwaters because, again, they're going to be flowing. You want to just stay safe from them. Seek higher ground as soon as you possibly can. So it's Saskatchewan. A lot of areas are flat. You just want to try and get away from where rivers are, get away from creeks or small areas that the ground goes down. And check your surroundings. So again, storms have the possibility to produce more than just rain. They can have hail, they can have strong winds, they can have lightning, tornadoes. So always be aware of your surroundings. Okay, we're going to go into one of the most destructive parts of a thunderstorm, besides tornadoes, that's wind. So this is, again, so your radar imagery. So this is reflectivity. You have your thing being pinged in, and it's being bounced back. But right in front of the storm here, you kind of see a little line. So what is that line? So all of the cold air moving out of the storm is producing really strong winds. What this is right here is this is dust. That's leaves, that's sticks, that's branches, that's debris from this storm being lofted so high into the air that the radar is picking it up as rain, which is crazy. So in front of this storm up to, from Wilkie to Wolfie, damaging winds in front of the storm. So winds are one of the most destructive parts of a thunderstorm. So you have a tornado that's going through really locally, very strong winds, but when you have winds from a thunderstorm, it is very wide, a very long area. Like we saw earlier with that squall line that went through Alabama, the entire state of Alabama had a very strong wind gusts that were going right across it, causing tons of damage. So again, they can cause widespread damage. So you can have your tornado that goes through with 100-mile-an-hour wind speeds. That's going to be very significant. It's going to cause a lot of damage. But once you have your thunderstorm that's now 60 kilometers wide, producing 100-kilometer-hour wind gusts, that swath is now 60 kilometers wide, moving across the land. That can cause a lot more damage than, say, a tornado could at that time. So sometimes straight line winds can exceed 100 miles per hour, which is over 160, which is wild. So what should you do when you have a really strong thunderstorm? So you want to treat it like a tornado. So if you have that strong winds, again, you're going to have debris that's flying through your walls. You can still have that coming through. Windows can be breaking, trees can fall on your house. Just treat it like a tornado. Find a sturdy building to shelter in place and stay away from windows. Try and put yourself underground and have as many walls or just things between you and the outside as you possibly can. Now, again, I can't stress this enough. I know I sound like a broken record, but tornadoes can form from thunderstorms. If you have that strong wind risk, you can have a tornado on top of you in about 15 minutes. You can have large hail, so just be prepared for those. So straight line winds can be very damaging. Generally, straight line winds are less damaging than a tornado is. They're just over a larger area, but they can be very destructive. So these are entire swaths of trees just blown over. This was blown over next to a house. They are very lucky. If that were to fall onto that house, it can be completely destroyed. And if you're standing next to those windows, you can get in. Now lightning is another very dangerous part of a thunderstorm. Maybe.
Whoa! Oh, we got that on camera.
Yeah. We got footage. We got a picture of it. So this lightning bolt struck. We think it struck the North Saskatchewan River. We're fairly certain. But cloud to ground lightning is extremely dangerous. So lightning kills. On average, up to 10 people in Canada are killed by lightning per year. So in 1 year, 10 people are killed by lightning. And up to 150 people are seriously injured by that lightning, which is quite crazy. 10 people that are killed by lightning per year, when all you have to do is stay inside. So lightning not only is extremely hot and it can strike people, but it can also cause other damages. So lightning can cause fires. So a lot, northern Saskatchewan, they actually have a whole bunch of lightning detection systems because lightning strikes can cause huge forest fires. About 50% of forest fires are caused by natural causes, and almost all of that is from lightning itself. So lightning, obviously, it can cause electrocution. You can have a lightning strike that can hit a power line, and all of a sudden that massive surge can cause very dangerous arcing. You could be, if anyone around that power line, could be electrocuted. So when thunder roars, go indoors. It is very simple. You just have to stay out. You have to stay inside. Just don't go into an area where lightning will strike. So now, if you can't go inside, this is the strongest thing. You want to try and stay away from things that conduct electricity. So if you have really tall buildings like a satellite tower, if you have vehicles or like metal structures, try and stay away from those because they'll conduct lightning. If you have a vehicle, stay inside of your vehicle, so like inside of a car. Obviously, if you have your tornado that's on the way, you have really large hail, stay in that vehicle. Tornado, get into the ditch. You want to try and prioritize, but a lightning strike, and it strikes your vehicle, it'll go on the outside and it'll keep you safe. So cars are actually designed to protect people from lightning. But you also want to try and get, let's say you're in the middle of a field. So you're in just grassland, Saskatchewan. You want to try and find the lowest area. So stay away from trees. Try and find an area to shelter in place that is low to the ground. If you're standing up on a hill, you're more likely to get struck by lightning than if you're at the end of that hill. So also, wait 30 minutes after the storm is gone to come out. So 30 minutes after you hear the last rumble of thunder, then it should be safe. The reason for that is lightning can actually strike 15 kilometers away from the base of the storm. So you could be literally standing just in sunny skies and you can still get struck by lightning. So we just go into some kind of random knowledge now. Overpasses are not safe. They are never safe. They can provide protection from maybe a few hailstones, but they are much more of a hazard than people think. So inside of this overpass, winds are going to be going through it. So because that overpass is really strong, it's going to be making those winds stronger as they go through it. Pressurizes the wind, which makes it stronger. So if you had a tornado that comes through here, you're going to all of a sudden, instead of getting 100-kilometer winds, let's say it's a weaker tornado, you could have 120 or 130-kilometer winds just because it's going through like a wind tunnel. You also do not have any protection whatsoever under there. You have cars, but again, cars are not safe in tornadoes, so it's just going to enhance the speed that things are traveling under there. They also can act as a water trap, so sometimes water can get stuck around overpasses depending on where they are built, which can cause serious flooding. Now, another thing is these people are blocking the highway. If there's an emergency responder that came through or a semi that didn't see you guys, there could be a very big accident that can happen. So now nighttime. So thunderstorms, it is very common for severe thunderstorms to occur at night. You can have your prime time for thunderstorms is late afternoon to midnight. So thunderstorms can keep going into the night just because they still have a lot of heat, they still have lots of moisture and instability that is from the daytime heating, and they can keep on growing overnight. Sometimes storms are so strong that they'll actually start in the afternoon of one day and keep going until the morning of the day after. So storms at night are way more dangerous. They are not weaker. Night does nothing to storms. You still have that heat, they can still keep growing, but it makes it way harder to see. So this is a nighttime tornado right here, and that is a lightning flash. If that lightning flash wasn't there, it would just look like this. You would just see blackness. You would not be able to see that tornado. The only thing you can rely on are your ears, and sometimes when you have large hail falling, or you have rain that just basically comes out of nowhere, you're not going to be able to hear all of your environment. So not only that, we talked about how visibility goes down in rain and in hailstorms. If it's at night and then you have that rain and hail, your visibility is going to be absolutely zero. Even if you have your lights on, you can maybe see 3 feet in front of you and then just nothing. It'll just be black. So now we're going to go on. So that was the chunk of the presentation that we're going to give, but I'm going to go and talk a little bit about the Youth Preparedness Council. So that's what I'm doing. So like I said earlier, we're doing the Brilliance Project, but I'm also in the Saskatchewan Public Safety's Youth Preparedness Council. So if you enjoy hands-on work and you want to help your province, this is definitely for you. So you guys listen up. So the Youth Preparedness Council is the council that I'm doing to do this right now. It's with the Saskatchewan Public Safety Agency, where youth, like all of you guys, can go, you guys can apply, and you can do your own project. So this is what my project is. This is going to be given to other schools throughout the province this year, even throughout the summer by other people, but you can do whatever project that you want to do. This is part of what this was. The other person that was in it, he's actually doing tons of videos to help promote public education and stuff, and we're trying to get more people to join next year. So anyone can join this, and you can literally do a province-wide project that can help everyone. It affects, if you do this presentation, or you can do whatever you want with the council, it will affect everybody in this room. It affects the entire province. So students from grade 8 to 12 can join. Now, I know that some of you guys are in grade 7. It starts next year, so you guys can apply right now. Once you're in grade 8, then you can join. So everyone in here can join. So if you want to actually join the council for next year, I have papers and stuff. I want you to come and talk to me after I'm finished, and then I can help get you started on the right path. So we'll go into the last part now. Does anybody have any questions?